Cases like these, it always helps to come at things from a different angle. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we do over here at the Questionnaire, man. I mean, I definitely like to think it's not your normal comic book podcast. I mean, shit, I make these guys all fill out a questionnaire before they even come on the show, and sometimes they're like, I'm like, well, what do you want? What do you wish for this damn questionnaire to end? I've had that answer more than once, but whatever. Fucking Alan Henry answered it, man. I don't even want to hear no complaints, right? Right? Unless you're like, I'm gonna be real honest, man. I do play King. I got King Kong to answer the questionnaire. Answer the questionnaire. It makes the show better, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it is. But I am the unknown factor. I mean, obviously, this is the questionnaire because I've said that word a lot, talking about the pre-show questionnaire that I send out, because there's just a questionnaire involved in the questionnaire, and that is the case. Yeah, but with that, a man that's had many a different quest on many a different thing, from working with the Big Two, doing his own thing, doing a number of other things, man. And we're gonna get into a lot of things. Richard Pace in the house. How you doing, man?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
Uh, fucking manic, isn't it obvious?
A little.
I mean, they tell me I should take drugs. I'm like, I like to raw dog it. I don't give a fuck that it is life, and God knows what I'll catch.
Drugs have their place, but not every place.
I meant like those, but you know what kind of drugs I mean. I'm not talking like fentanyl or meth. I know I'm in an area where, oh my God, I could probably find meth way quicker than I care to. I mean, hell, I don't know what the situation that was down the block that Alan got to catch the tail end of when the cops ended up showing up. If that was over meth, I wouldn't have been surprised. If I get that up, y'all can check that on the Patreon, hopefully, because I totally need to put it out, because I'm sitting there talking to King Kong, and the fucking cops are showing up outside my porch while I'm smoking a cigar. It's a pretty screwy situation. It really is. It really, really is, man. But like I said, Rich, you've done... Rich, all right? Rich, all right? I shorten the shit out of everybody's name, man. I can't help myself. Are you...
The only person that ever called me Rich with any consistency is my mom, and I don't talk to her anymore, so it's Richard from now on.
Okay, fair enough. This is why I asked, and I should have before we started, but whatever, man. It's just been a long day, Richard. Okay, it's been a long fucking day. All right, I need at least man. You wasted one of your 3 wishes.
I did. Which one did I waste?
Because if I was going to give you a superpower, anyways, you don't need to wish for it too.
But the questionnaire didn't say I was going to get everything that was asked on the questionnaire. So one point, ask for 3 wishes, ask for superpower. It might be mutually exclusive.
Fair enough. That is not specified, right? And I mean, really, what you get all depends on whether they like it or whether they hate it. They might send you, but we'll get to that at the end of the interview. This is just the beginning, man. So to start, I'm curious. Like I said, you worked for a number of different publishers in your career.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you got any untold horror stories? That's what I want, since you like horror films.
Always. It's comics. It's the entertainment industry that likes to pretend entertainment industry.
Wait.
It's all amateur hour, top to bottom.
Say that. Did you say it's the entertainment industry that likes to pretend it's an entertainment industry?
Yeah.
I just had to clarify that that's what I'd heard, because I was like, the entertainment industry. All right, then. All right. I mean, but can you really say that based on, what they've spawned?
Well, if you look at what comics, just on their own, have spawned, it spawned one of the best truisms in any sort of media I've been a part of. If you want to make a little bit of money in comics, you have to start with a lot of money. Our business practices, if you want horror stories, you just got to look up the history of this industry. A big chunk of it started with mob money. It's an industry that tries to take itself seriously but doesn't make serious decisions. Did you see the news this week about DC's manga-sized comic books?
No, but I think I've seen one.
Well, this is brand new, so none of the books have come out. They are
Oh.
reprinting Watchmen.
Oh.
Yeah, and they're all going to do it manga size, thinking that's going to attract the manga crowd. And it's like, I'm going, that was a corporate decision? I mean, from an industry standpoint, no company has ever made smart decisions for the industry they're a part of. And with that, they can barely be trusted to make smart decisions for their own company. So right now, Watchmen sells for what, $30 retail?
Man, there are so many different editions you can find of Watchmen currently,
Basic
from the
trade. We can probably
deluxe
say,
huge
like there's
slipcase.
hardcovers, deluxe, and all that stuff. But the
Yeah.
basic full color trade, probably $30.
I mean, I would say 25, 30 tops. Yeah, if you're just getting the paperback version. Yeah. Yeah, but I
Selling
mean,
for
then,
10
like I said, you
pop.
can find $200 versions. I guarantee it.
Yeah, but they're going to sell these smaller Watchmen for $10 a pop.
I mean, but I see pros and cons to that, because I look and I see that it's you might be able to get people that have either watched the TV show or that have watched the movie, and they weren't willing to drop $25 on Watchmen, but maybe they're tens. Okay, I'll get that. You know what I mean? But the people that were gonna buy Watchmen to begin with, they probably already have it and have maybe bought it more than once. I need to buy a new copy. That's neither here nor there. Hey man, some shit happened and I lost a lot of fucking comics. All right, it annoys me that I ain't getting into it. Whatever. I'm just gonna appreciate the
But
collection I've built currently.
Think of it from this point. If you're a retailer and you sell anywhere from 20 to 30, and we're talking about a smaller retailer, you sell 20 to 30 Watchmen trades every year minimum, just with holidays and Christmas and stuff, right? So at $30 a pop, that's a nice chunk of change. But now that's gone because it's a $10 copy, and you're going to make a fraction of what you're not going to make the same amount of money selling one of those $10 editions that you were selling $30 editions. So for every person who would have bought Watchmen but said, "Oh, $30 is too much," how many people is that? And how many of those people do you need to replace the other 66% of the money that the retailer lost with these smaller copies?
I mean, but maybe that's what they're looking for in that, because if they are able to attract a portion of the manga crowd to that
Yeah.
book, just because it's nice and it fits on your shelf with the rest of your manga, and it's something that's classic, as well as the fact that, like I said, if you could get a lot of people that never would have necessarily picked up the comic because of the price point if they were a fan of the show. I mean, I feel like that's a replaceable percentage, but the people that see it aren't going to be the comic book stores. It's going to be, online retailers, Amazon, and probably Walmart, and like Barnes and Noble, more than anywhere else, that are going to see that. I don't see that.
But
I don't see
Amazon,
that affecting the
all the
comic book
people
side.
did discount from cover price already. So their $30 Watchmen probably sells for 25.
Comics are too damn
And
expensive, anyways, man. Let's be honest.
well, if you look at inflation, comics really, there's been a few jumps that have jumped ahead of inflation, but they went from an industry which no one made a survivable wage at to actually a decent wage and a decent profit center for retailers so they can actually somewhat subsist.
Okay. So let me rephrase myself. You're right, because it's not necessarily common, because if minimum wage had increased at the same rate of, like, I don't know, fucking milk, right? Which is a
Yeah.
necessity of life, which is the point of minimum. I don't know. I'm gonna get on a rant and end up wanting to smack somebody, because I think that's the funny thing. If you look at it, comics thrived more in the '90s, right? But you know what there was in the '90s? More of a fucking middle class,
Yeah.
right? Right?
Yeah.
Like
And
there was
it's
a
a
larger percentage of that.
minimum wage kept pace with executive income from its inception. Minimum wage would be 25, $30 an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, so those executives would make less money, but everyone else would have more money, and probably comics wouldn't cost as much because more comics would sell.
Isn't it? You ever think it's funny? I mean, not necessarily funny, ha 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 ha, but funny like you son of a bitch. Is if you look at how entertainment's been handled recently, from everything turning to streaming, that's made it to where it makes everything accessible, so it makes it to seem, I think, to executives anyways, that the creators for some reason aren't important anymore because they have like you can just show everybody everything that already exists. It boggles my mind as to why they don't understand that there has to be new art for us to move forward. I mean, you have to have all form. It can't, and that's just how it is. But I don't know, man. I don't have a fucking helicopter, so I don't know how to be that greedy. You know, I guess that's
I
in
think
part what it is.
it's in the animal kingdom. We've studied the animal kingdom so much that we know that community-based species share. And the only hominid species we know of that hoards out of greed is humans. So we treat excess wealth as if it's an achievement when it's actually some form of mental illness.
I mean, because it is technically hoarding. It's just doing it with
Yeah.
something else. It really is. I mean, because at a certain point, how much money do you need? Like, it's the whole motherfuckers sending themselves to space privately that's got me like, are you shitting me?
Yeah. Well, I hit my limit more when we started realizing we had, like, I have no problem with millionaires. Millionaires is not quite generational wealth nowadays. I mean, to maintain a lifestyle, if you're in your 30s and you got $10 million cash, if you're smart, you'll never burn through it all. Right? You can live a beautifully luxurious life, take care of your kids, your grandkids, living with a nice inheritance. But that means you never have to take a loan. You never have to do anything stupid. And that's even if you go south of the border and look at like their completely fucked up healthcare system, where you have to pay out of pocket. If you got $10 million, you're making something like $600,000 a year in interest, okay, more or less. And if you're playing the stock market on top of that, you're good. You're golden. I actually think we should have a maximum wage. As soon as you hit, I don't know, let's pull an arbitrary number, $25 million. Everything else you make, no matter how, goes right to the government. And you get a little plaque saying that we're going to name a park after you because you made so much money, you bettered the entire society. Who needs more than $25 million?
I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
But then you have to get into the whole debate of where do you make that line? Because there are people that create businesses that own that business that are definitely generating more than that. Now, if you're telling them to kick it all back to the government, why would you do that? Because then you're still not fixing the problem of the people below them getting that payment rate, unless you in the same time fix that.
Yeah. If you have the people who made $25 million and they're upset, well, I'm not going to start a new business, right? That's great. They'll never make more than $25 million a year. Someone else will. And they'll take advantage of, because no businessman, no matter how much they insist that they're the job creators and everything, not one businessman is in that to create jobs. They're in that to get richer, right?
Right.
So there is a step towards, I want to become rich, okay, and I'm going to create jobs to take care of that, but I need to do that in my step to becoming rich. Once you're rich, if you're investing, you're just investing to get richer. You're not saying, well, I'm going to fix society. You're not going to do that Bill Gates bullshit where he's like, now that I'm a billionaire, I'm going to start giving away my money in places that matter to me, not to the people that live around me. Right? Right. So I have no problem. I love billionaire tears. I love it when these rich sons of bitches who've destroyed hundreds of thousands of lives around the planet cry because their tax rate might go up a percentage. Make those motherfuckers cry. Fuck, I don't care. Kill them. You're a billionaire. We're going to increase your taxes so you only have 25 billion. You can't do that. Oh, well, okay, we're going to make it an inheritance tax. So you get to choose which of your kids gets 25 million, everyone else gets bupkis, but you're going to die. I'm okay with dead billionaires. Name a good living billionaire.
I can't, but in what you said, if you did that,
Yeah.
all right. Firstly, dude, you're gonna cause World War III.
Well, we have that happening in the Middle East right now.
I mean, if y'all want to look, we're not getting in depth in that situation. Yeah, we're not getting in depth in that situation. We're both way too pale for that shit, right? But if you do want to hear a questionnaire, we do get in depth in the Middle East situation. Check out a couple with Ashton. He just dropped Siphon from Top Cal a few episodes back. We get in deep in that whole subject. We ain't doing it now, and I hope it's not World War III. Why you gotta I prefer it not be, man. Like, is it what makes you seem to be a real fucking pessimist, dude? Jesus, Richard, come on.
Well, I mean, I'm 55. I've only seen things get worse, despite. So I'm a lefty. I think it's pretty obvious right off the bat. I've seen all these. Being adjacent to the U.S. my entire life, I see what they call. I mean, they call Biden a communist. Right? We're talking. He's probably the most pro-money centrist Democrat you can find, and they're calling him a communist. America's so fucked up. Every left-wing president since Carter has made the world shitty. So the choice between Democrats who make the world shittier and Republicans who want to destroy it, that doesn't create a lot of optimism, man.
You know I'm in the Midwest, right?
I'm in Canada.
I'm just saying I'm in the Midwest.
Well, I don't like to get assassinated by Trump supporters for my talking on your show.
Oh yeah, so I hope you don't get me shot. But technically, if the music me and DKB ever blows up, that'll probably get me shot. So I don't know. I mean, shit we say on there, I really don't, frankly, worry about it. I'm just like sitting here like.
Well, honestly, most Trump supporters are largely illiterate to some degree or another, so they're not going to watch a show about comics because they don't read them. They'll complain about comics, they just won't read them. That made Superman gay.
You really think, out of curiosity, how often do you think that happens, Rich? And have you actually had the experience in your career? Because I know for a fact.
I got death threat second coming.
Now, was it by someone that read comics? Do you know?
Well, the story's really convoluted because what happened is Fox News picked up a story off of Breitbart about Second Coming. And some bright penny over there started one of those protest online petition things. And somehow they got a hold of Jim Lee and Dan DiDio's email. So every time someone signed up on this protest, Jim Lee and Dan DiDio got an email. And over 250,000 people signed it. And that's the real reason why DC said, you know what, we really want this book out there, but we published Batman's penis last year, and we're still reeling from that. So here's your book. Go find a new home for it. So I absolutely convinced that of that 250,000 plus people who signed that petition, I bet maybe 5% of them have read comics, and probably most of them were Archie comics.
See, do you think that's odd? Because I guarantee they'd all seen a superhero film.
Oh, probably, but that's movies and TVs that you don't have to read.
Why do you think it is? Do you really think that's because I feel like you're pounding in the point that the main reason people don't read comics and will watch superhero movies is because people just don't want to read.
People don't read. People don't read. If people read, do you think Trump would have got elected?
I mean, look, I certainly wasn't gonna vote for a man. But like literally, I showed up and wasn't able to vote and it was a whole convoluted mess. I'm like, whatever, man, fuck it then, fine. It's not like it's anything different from a turd sandwich and a giant douche. I mean, let's just come on, right? But I'm still gonna blame Canada. Yeah, right. Fuck it. It- but I mean, really, what the other choice was terrifying as well.
Hillary?
Yeah, man.
The Democrats are the status quo America party. Big businesses making big bucks. Um, the poor and middle class are so oppressed with bills that they really can't foment change. You elect a Democrat, you're going to get pretty much everything staying the same for 4 years. You elect a Republican, you saw what happened under Trump.
That's my thing. So, and again, to reference South Park, it's a giant douche or turd sandwich. So fuck it, I'm just gonna blame
Well,
Canada if I'm gonna like.
in the douche's defense, it does clean out a vagina. A turd sandwich is just you eating shit.
Yeah, but this country's turned into way more of an asshole if we're gonna be honest.
Well, it's turning into a third world country. I think it's arguable that America is a third world country right now.
Really?
Wealth disparity. America has some of the worst wealth disparity in the world. Imprisoned population. America's number one with population in prison, more so than any dictatorship in the world. And we're talking percentages, not just volume.
Yeah, I mean, but that, can I say, Rich, that, in my opinion, more than anything, as far as the prison population goes, to the fact that they privatized prisons, which was the dumbest thing that could be done with anything where you're trying to use to contain the criminal element and hopefully better it. You shouldn't privatize it for a company that's going to be about making money. That is literally one of the dumbest things I think I've ever heard as a concept from our government, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Herb being a class one, that's pretty stupid too. But I don't know. I mean, those are
Really well. Also, the other key indicator is lack of social mobility. If you're poor, I think you're 99% guaranteed to die poor. You're born into a poor family, you're not going to know how to handle money, and you are punished in America. It's also in Canada, but you're punished in America for being poor. You have all these additional fees because you don't have enough money to just survive in America with no recompense. And any attempt, I mean, also just let's go whole hog. Every red state is reducing minority and women rights, not mentioning how they're going after the LGBTQ plus rest of the alphabet. Those are third world approaches. Even the commercialization of things like prison and other services. That level of commercialization is something that the World Bank and U.S. usually forces on third world countries when they're essentially running them. America is it bought the full shitload of propaganda that we're number one, while they gradually just turn themselves into a shithole country that has a lot of rich people living around the fringes.
Well, damn.
Not to get you depressed.
Rich, you really know how to make somebody proud to be an American.
Fuck yeah.
Goddamn. Let me go get some Budweiser. Or no, Bud Light. My bad.
Bud Light.
Be a Bud Light.
That's
right. Yeah, my bad. I don't have any Bud Light. Goddamn, Rich.
Yeah.
I do have some whiskey.
Yeah, so do I. But
Jesus Christ, man. I don't even like. So about comic books. All right. So we're getting all. I don't know. I take that back. Maybe I don't want to talk about comic books. Comic books is what led us to this fucking discussion. God.
No. Everything leads to the world that we're living in. But it was largely the rabbit hole we started diving down was that comics doesn't know how to actually run a business. There's no publisher in comics that knows how to run a business. There's no distributor that knows how to distribute. The most beneficial thing that's happened in the last decade was moving closer to standard book distribution. because that's taking comics a step out of the self-imposed ghetto of the direct market.
Why do you think it is that that's so difficult, especially when you think about the fact that the big two, one of them's been owned by Warner Brothers forever, you
Yeah.
know, and the other one is currently owned by Disney. Why do you think? I mean, those two companies should be capable of fixing that problem, I would think.
Okay, then you have to realize that the level of dysfunction runs right through the executive class. We don't just look at the way all businesses run. They're always chasing how to increase their percentage of the profit at the end of the quarter. They're not looking on efficiency down to point. They don't care about anyone at Disney. I mean, just tells you. So when Disney bought Marvel, the then owner maintained control, right? He has all these fucked up ideas that, don't give them, if you're running a budget for an office and they needed $500,000 last year to run it effectively, give them $490 this year, despite inflation, because of the inefficiencies and get rid of them. And it's a philosophy. It's like, fire your bottom 10% employees, all this stuff. So that's the guy running Marvel at Disney. They just finally got rid of him. He's also a Trump supporter. But at any given point, given point, he could have made shifts at Marvel that would have made making the comics better and easier for the staff at Marvel. Instead, he pinched pennies and forced editors to work for less and less and freelancers to work for less and less as they put out more and more comics. And Disney didn't care because Marvel Comics was making money. As long as the bottom line is in black ink, they don't care what happens to any of the people.
Well, I mean, firstly, that's kind of been the Disney way for a long time, has it not?
No, it's yeah.
I mean,
And Warner Brothers
yeah.
a little bit better. Warner Brothers, before they got flipped and sold and bought and flipped and sold and bought, and you have all these people with their wonderful business degrees who say, well, I know how to run a business, and it has nothing to do with treating people like humans, right? I mean, that's it used to be DC Comics. The people who own Warner Brothers realized all we have to do is crap out a Batman movie or a Superman movie every 5 to 10 years, and it pays for all of DC Comics. Right?
Yeah.
During one of the more recent maneuvers, back when the deal was still around, those people stopped caring. They said, no. DC has to return on investment on its own. And this is in spite of decades of mismanagement of the industry it existed in. The direct market's always been a mess, right? That was the primary outlet for DC Comics because Warner Books had the book trade, right?
Well, and not even that, but you bring up Superman and Batman, and I think that's one of DC's. To me personally, one of DC's larger problems is, look, I don't need half of the books that come out every month or more, for that matter, to be either about Batman or Superman. Like, there's such a variety of characters there that they don't. And Marvel's way better. I mean, not that Marvel doesn't have things that fall to the same suit. Hell, I think Deadpool's got at least 2 series going on right now. I don't want to talk about the Spider-Man and X-Men world because I cannot get into either one of those because, well, frankly, it's just too goddamn much. But I think that's one of their major faults, man. In that is, for some reason, and it's funny that you bring up what Marvel did recently because I know. Shout out to Heather Anthos. Heather Anthos, great person. Check out her past quest. We get into some of this as far as what we're discussing here. With they said just put out this, and they'll take a fruit and it's got a little juice, and then they'll put it in a fucking compressor and make it to where it's mush, and then they'll get pissed that there's no more juice left in the fruit. It's like, well, dude, you compressed it with 10,000 pounds. What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, it's so part of the problem is when you're a fan as a young person, comics is as much your entertainment as it is your hobby and your social life. Going to the comic shop is a social experience. You talk to your retailers, the people who work there, you talk about the different books, you buy new books, you try new books. That's fine. In my 50s, I don't need 5 Batman books a month, especially if none of them are that good. And part of what makes them not good is I read 40 years of Batman growing up to this point, plus reprints of the older classics. So there's almost nothing new that's going to happen with Batman that's going to make me want to buy 1 Batman book a month, let alone 4.
Yeah.
And I think the big problem is, and this guy explained to me by a few different retailers. There's no longer DC Comics fans, Marvel Comics fans. There's Batman fans. Instead of buying a whole bunch of DC books, they just buy Batman books. That's their fix. That's their new thing. And they're younger, and this is their hobby, and that's their niche now. You might, based on word of mouth, if Green Lantern's amazing, they might pick up a Green Lantern book, try it out, and if it's good, they'll keep buying it. But they're Batman readers, they're Spider-Man readers, they're X-Men readers. I've been reading X-Men since I was 12, and I'm not going to stop now. Right? That's the direct market. That's the core of the direct market. You get to a certain age, either you become a collector, so then that's where all the variant covers and where they rate the precision quality of the book, so it's a collector item completely. You have that, and then you have the younger people who actually still see it as some sort of social hobby. It's Warhammer with staples in the middle.
You made me, I'll be honest, man, you made me just kind of look through, because I wasn't able to get to my local comic store for like a month, and I had to pick up a lot of things. You made me kind of look through and be like, am I? And yeah, I totally am like, there's a couple characters like Deadpool, Blade just dropped a new series, I'll pick that up. Like, there's a couple characters I follow. I had to get Alien, but then like there's a lot, like the finale of Click Click Boom, which has been fucking phenomenal, you know. But yeah, I had to get this. If you're any kind of Wolverine and Predator fan, and you didn't pick up this,
I'm gonna get it. If word of mouth is strong, I'm gonna pick it up in trade. Everything gets collected. Everything gets collected.
I mean, I know, and part of me is like, I should have, but I couldn't wait for that story, because I've loved Predator for a long time, and Wolverine is like top 5 X-Men for me. I'm not that dude that's like, I love Wolverine, but then like I never read this before the show, you know, and you have to be a comic book nerd to know what the hell this is.
Big game. Yeah, I know.
Mark Miller, man, big game.
Yeah, well, what's big game about? See, I need to know. I find most Mark Millar stuff the last few years really forgettable. But my friend Jim turned me on to his James Bond book, which was brilliant.
He has like an actual James Bond book?
It's not James Bond. It's James Bond. It's the Mark Millar thing, where he takes an idea and he's ripping off a core idea, but he's putting his Mark Millar spin on it. And I thought King of Spies was a hell of a good read. And I read The Ambassadors, and beautiful art. It's a mess, an absolute mess. And that's why I prefer reading in trades. I'd hate to have picked up the first issue, something got excited, and then read the next issue. It's like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to stick with it. Pick up the next issue, and you kind of go, oh, God, it's worse. Right? I'll pick up the trade. If the trade sucks, well, then the book sucks. You know what I mean? I'll still finish it.
I thought Ambassadors was intriguing, but at the same time, big game from Miller right now. It's him tying his whole universe together. Like, you know, the Ambassadors there, Nemesis is in it, everybody from Wanted is in it, the characters from Kick-Ass. Like, it's him doing an event with everything he's created, you know?
Yeah.
And as long as, I mean, if you've only read Wanted, I don't know that I would recommend this fucking book to you, you know? Just because it's heavy.
I read a chunk of the Millerverse stuff. I mean, I read Wanted way back in the day. I liked Huck, I think it was called. That was fine. His weird kind of Superman. The ending, he didn't stick the ending, but he rarely does. Most people don't. That's a sad truth of being a storyteller. Most of your endings are going to suck. Just try and do better next time. I like King of Spies. I thought Nemesis was garbage. I find for all the weird attribution of, like, everyone saying that Alan Moore likes rape. Mark Millar, the rape scenes he writes in his comics are egregious. I mean, the rapes in Moore comics, they're for horrific intent. You're supposed to be, oh my God, this is horrible. And when Millar does it, it's like, oh, look at this evil person enjoying raping someone, which is a completely different thing. So I can be a hard sell for Millar. It took Jim Zub, the guy who's currently writing Conan. He recommended it. He said it was like the idea he wished he had, and it was just a good standalone idea story, and it paid off. But so many of Millar's stuff is like, well, what can I do that's incredibly salacious? I think that's the word that best describes Millar's plotting system. What can I do that will, like, really offend or piss some people off, and I'm going to hang my story around it. And I mean, it's obviously worked for him. I did enjoy the first arc of Magic Order. A big chunk of that was just because it was like the most beautiful comic of the year. But then Stuart Immonen, an artist I generally love, did the second arc, and it was nothing to it, man. It was just.
So I know those characters are also included in Big Game.
Okay.
So yeah, he's woven a lot there. And I don't know, maybe that's what, like, maybe this has been his long con the whole time. Like, when he initially wrote Wanted, he's like, fucking watch this, and like he planned it out.
If anyone had that much foresight, I don't think he'd be working in comics.
Damn, man. I feel like I can't release this interview between how much you've talked about shit on just the comic book industry in general, and then how much you've talked shit on America. Fuck, man, you're gonna get me canceled, Richard. Right after I have.
Maybe I'm getting myself canceled.
All right, well, as long as it's just your problem and not mine. Yeah, that's your fucking problem, Richard. I'm sorry.
I mean, you're doing a pretty decent job standing up saying I'm a good American.
What's a good American, man? I don't know. Look, like, if you want to get into my political opinion of America,
sure.
The system entirely needs restructure. The system that we currently have in place has obviously failed. And it's not fixable because it's been tried to be fixed too many times. Now, I do think everybody should be democratically elected. I think elections are a great thing, but I think that CPACs need to go the fuck away. I think that minimum wage should get spiked all to hell, like $25-$30. I think that temporary hiring agencies should go the fuck away. I don't think they should exist. I think they're a serious problem in this country. I think we should unprivatize prisons. It's the dumbest fucking thing we've ever done. It just makes it to where you guarantee that convict comes the fuck back because all you did was fuck them up because, bitch, you the profit. Mm-hmm.
I think,
you know what I mean?
All schools should be nationalized.
I mean, I could fully agree with that, to where it was a certain set text, but then you have to create an entire department in DC that it's
Department of Education.
Yeah, that's pretty goddamn big though, and diverse. You need to make sure.
See, there's a weird thing where bureaucracy solves its own problems by how big it is.
Oh, and one other thing. If you're over 60 and you're in the government, get the fuck out, right? Period. Right? In the story, right? You're 60, bitch, you've been in this shit long enough. You telling me you ain't embezzled enough somewhere where your old ass can fuck off and go retire, right? You didn't? Well, that's your own fucking problem. Get the fuck out, right? 60 years old.
I don't think you have to work 60. I think I think there should be mandatory retirement at 55. And you should be paid well enough that you can afford to retire at 55. And if you do work past that, it has to be self-employment. You have to be, if you're working past 55, you have to be doing it for yourself.
So would that include people in the entertainment industry?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, if anything, okay, let's talk about a real entertainment industry, one that's on strike right now.
Oh,
all right.
shit.
What the executives don't realize is, and I think the writers figured it out, because that's what's coming. I think the actors are about to figure it out. They don't need studios anymore. So they're negotiating with the producers, because that's the structure. But the advent of Netflix and every platform that could became a platform, we're primed for the new United Artists. Do you remember United Artists?
That was, what, the early 80s?
Oh, no, a lot older than that. A whole bunch of actors got sick of the studio system. So the top entertainers, it's a whole story. You could end up doing a whole show on itself. So I'll be really quick. They formed their own studio. And they made their own distribution deals. And they made a hell of a long go of it until they got bought out.
I mean, and
so if you're Martin Scorsese and James Cameron and Quentin Tarantino, and grab a handful of A-list actors and a handful of A-list writers, so we're going to create our own streaming platform. We're going to call it United Artists Stream, UAS. Right. And what we're going to do is we're going to produce our own movies. We're going to stream them. We're going to be completely open and above the books. And if you make something out on your own, we will platform it as long as you don't have to deal with another studio. And the studio system as we know it.
You know for a fact that it's funny because I think the person that has put their foot forward the most in that initially is a name you would never expect, and I don't think certainly would have mentioned, that being Miley Cyrus.
Taylor Swift?
Or Taylor Swift. Why did I say Miley Cyrus? Wait, she used to be Miley Cyrus. Wait, am I right? I don't fucking... No, okay, different person.
Miley Cyrus used to be Hannah Montana. Taylor Swift is always been Taylor Swift.
Whatever, dude.
I
don't watch Teen
the
Pop.
Smartest thing. I had a kid, so I was aware of Hannah Montana.
My kid's 4.
And strikes are spelling the end of Disney as we know it, the end of Warner Brothers as we know it, the end of Netflix as we know it. They're these business guys who come up with their MBAs and they'll talk shit about the creative people who actually make the entertainment. They're about to realize how disposable they are, despite being multimillionaires. No one needs Bob Iger. The only people who need Bob Iger, let me correct myself. The only people who need Bob Iger are Disney shareholders. They need to feel confident in the company that they're investing in.
But you don't feel like they've got to come to an agreement. What are they going to do? Let the MCU die?
No, they own it. They're gonna pay tons of money to get people to make Marvel movies. That's not an issue. What the issue is too bad Quentin Tarantino's next movie is his last movie. But Tarantino, with the advent of a new United Artists, would never have to negotiate with the studio ever again. So I want to make my movie. I'm rich enough to make my movie. I got really rich friends. I'll let them do it for a share of the profits because all Tarantino movies make bank. So I'm going to get Brad Pitt again. I'm going to get Scarlett Johansson. I'm going to get Tilda Swinton. I'm going to get Anthony Hopkins as the core cast for my next movie. They're all buying in for a share of the profits off of it. We'll make an independent deal with theaters across North America and the world. And we get the money ourselves. It doesn't go to executives who use AI algorithms to determine what movies are going to make money and are always wrong.
So, out of curiosity then, what's your opinion on the impact of Kickstarter and crowdfunding in general on the comic book industry? Because obviously, and we've had this discussion previously on the show, like when Kickstarter started, the point of Kickstarter was, okay, hey, here's my idea. and they helped get it off the ground, and then it wasn't on Kickstarter no more. They went and made a fucking business and sold whatever clever or dumb or goofy or whatever the idea was to whatever verb you want to attach to it. I'm sure there was endless verbs you could attach to endless things on Kickstarter. But when comics came into it, it became more of a platform to here's issue 1, okay, here's issue 2, here's issue 3. As opposed to kickstarting, it was actually finding a crowd and then using it like that. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it came in at the right time. I had a really smart friend who understood business because he was a businessman. Like, he literally run businesses his entire life, and he was also a comics fan. So I made friends of him at what was my local comic shop back in the day. And this is right after Carol Kalish and Marvel helped solidify the existence of the direct market. And he described the direct market as the slow death of comics. And I'm going to get to the Kickstarter bit. All right. So what the direct market is, and everyone knows what a comic shop is, but you have to understand, people who know what comic shops are, they know to get comics there. People who don't know about comic shops don't go to them. They just don't know about them. Right. So what that immediately does, and we're talking about comics, so let's talk about Bottle City of Kandor. Remember that from Superman? The whole Kryptonian city lives in a bottle. Yeah. So now the entire comics industry, with the advent of the direct market, is the bottled city of Kandor. All the shops are in there, and all the people who buy comics are also in there.
It's just funny that you say. Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because last time I was in my comic shop, which has been there quite a deal of time. It says Comic Book University, big as hell. It's in a strip mall that's got, dope Mexican restaurant, all this. It's in a very populated area. And there was some girl that was in there. She's looking at Pop. She's like, "You guys have so much cool stuff." I'm like, "This chick's never been in here." And it's like, what? Yeah, so I do get that isolation, because she obviously wasn't in there to get comics. She was looking at Pops and all the collectibles they have, because I think that's something that any good comic shop realizes they have to carry, because you have to be able to get in those people that don't care about the comic.
Comics, because comics is too small a market now.
Yeah.
But what happens is, so let's say when the bottled city of Kandor was started, there were 20 distributors and 15 comic companies of substantial size, and 2,000 comic shops. Right? And then all the fandom that bought that stuff was in that city too. But every time a distributor goes out of business, every time a comic shop closes, every time someone stops buying comics, the city shrinks a bit. It just takes up that space that's now empty. It just shrinks a bit. And it's a bottle. So bottles are big in the body, but they have a tiny opening. So the more that city shrinks, it can only take in so much at the top, because that opening is so small. So for the past 40 years, the comics industry with the direct market has been shrinking, and fewer people can come in that shrinking opening. And eventually, there won't be enough stuff inside that bottle to sustain anything in the direct market. So comics will exist. Comics will continue to exist, but the direct market might not.
Man, I don't know if I could ever see the direct market completely disappearing. And I say that in a large part, because I think it'll, if it comes to close to that, it'll essentially turn into things where a lot of these shops do other things. Like, I know the shops that I go to, they sell an ass load of Pokemon and Magic the Gathering. You know what I mean? Like a lot of it. And they also turn this and that.
And then they're not comic shops; they are entertainment shops, media shops. Right. If DVDs, I've been in comic shops that were during the height of the DVD Blu-ray boom. They were selling Blu-rays and DVDs. Right. You have to diversify. But what I'm actually talking about is not comic shops. I'm talking about the direct market. Eventually, with like the moves to Random House to distribute comics, the move away from Diamond. Diamond's now the sole reason the direct market currently exists the way it does. And the market might shrink small enough that Diamond can't afford to run its business. And if Diamond goes away, well, then all the comics get distributed by all these companies that are already distributing to the book trade. So then comic shops just become specialty bookstores, which I don't have a problem with.
Yeah, see, no, I don't think they would necessarily evolve into, but they would evolve into entertainment stores. I'd say more than anything else because they're obviously going to,
That's still
carry the, yeah, they're going to carry the figures and like I totally understand too that if like a place was to sell like DVDs and Blu-rays, I would understand them specializing in comic book oriented stuff. You know what I mean? Which if you carried Blu-rays and DVDs of just every comic book movie and show that it ever came out, that's a bigger wall than most people would honestly think, I think. Now, mind you, there's a lot of it I don't think you could get because it would be out of print. And you'd feel like, you'd have to be like, we got this season of this and, it's $100. Why is it $100? Because you can't get it.
These don't sell it. I wouldn't take that as a smart decision now. But when I'm saying they become a specialty bookstore, it's like, yes, they carry comics, but they carry role-playing games and collectible card games and pops and toys and statues and all that stuff. They would still exist. The shops would still exist, but they wouldn't have to deal with diamonds and the idea that the direct market is actually somehow related to comics.
You just named, you just like called out. You just called out my comic shop for not being a comic shop.
No, I'm saying they're a specialty bookstore. And I think, honestly, that's more approachable to the general public. It's like, oh, you really love the latest Avengers movie? You know what? There's a specialty bookstore I go to. They have toys and all this other fun stuff, too. But they have all these comics that the Avengers movies are based on. That's going to be an easier sell than a comic shop. Despite everything happening at the movie level, comics are still generally held with contempt. When they ask Martin Scorsese what he thinks about comic movies, he only thinks about the Marvel Warner Brothers shit. Because, right? I mean, it's like, and every time somebody goes, well, why isn't he thinking about The Crow or some other, movie that most people don't know is based on a comic book, right? It's because culturally we're stupid. We close our minds really quickly. As soon as we make up our mind about something, it takes everything to change it. So changing your name from comic book shop to specialty bookstore specialized in superheroes, you're gonna increase your accessibility to the public significantly.
Firstly, I love that you said The Crow because it is the biggest example, I think, of a comic book movie completely not being taken for what it was. And I think, God, I cannot remember the interview. It was so many ago. Part of me wants to say it was Sean, but I think I might be wrong. I don't know. We're like almost at 80 episodes over here. I'm not quite freaking positive who it was.
That's a lot of episodes.
Yeah, man. It's there have been a lot of conversations. Sometimes I can remember who it's with. Sometimes I can't. All right, I'll be fucking honest, man. It's a lot of conversations. Plus, I got to edit this shit. But it's the movie that a bunch of people went to, and a bunch of people came out and went, "Man, that was really cool," and then they turned goth, right?
Yeah.
Or emo. Yeah. When really they should have walked out and went, "Man, that's really cool," and went to their fucking comic book store.
Yeah. I don't even necessarily think they should have had to go to they should have went to their specialty bookstore. Which
I don't know.
Comic books, novelization, all that stuff.
In the day of The Crow.
Oh, I know.
You might, well, technically in the day when The Crow came out, the place I got my comics, which is in the town I'm living now, I would call a specialty bookstore, but I mean, they like sold books and used books, and they also were just the one place you could go and get comics on a weekly basis because I live in my local comic book store ain't fucking local, and I'll just say that. Like, that's why I don't get up there as often as I'd like to, and I'll never get up there on Wednesday because fuck that, man.
My preferred comic shop is about a 40-minute drive away.
And I still win.
And I live outside of Toronto. There are closer shops, but you develop a certain amount of loyalty. And so my preferred shop is like a 40-minute drive away. So just going there and back is already 80 minutes. And you go to a comic shop, you don't just walk in and out, right? You kind of you look at the new stuff.
See that?
3
That's
hours?
how many hours there and back.
Oh, shit. Okay, so we're pretty close there.
All right,
I'll go there. I'll spend probably 40 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on who's in the shop. And then you add 80 minutes of that. So that's 270 minutes. That's a long time, man. That's a long time on the road. It's an investment, man.
And I don't know. There's probably not a closer actual comic book shop to me. I'll be real honest. I'd have to fucking Google it to even see.
Yeah.
But I don't think there is. I think that's pretty much like there. I think there's a couple right around in that area that would be fairly close. And I mean, it might shave a couple minutes one way or the other. But yeah, I also have to be up there every Monday for a different reason. We ain't gonna get all into that. But so I use that and the time that I have free in that moment to go deal with that. You know what I mean? And it allows me to, have my therapy too. Because, we got into it earlier. I'm a little fucking manic, right? Like, I ain't gotten into none of this goddamn questionnaire, right? Like, I wanted to say, so nothing beats a top-notch horror, right? But that's pretty thin on the ground.
Just be clear, horror, not whore.
Hey, I love a good horror. Don't get in my way. Whatever.
When you ask like what my favorite film, I think when they're well made, I think it's very hard to beat for just the coupling of story, character, action, direction. The top horror films are generally the best films, period, to me.
Okay, so give me your top 5 horror films, man.
Alien, The Changeling. I think It Follows still holds up. Cabin in the Woods is brilliant in its deconstruction of most of the horror movies I would have said were good. First Poltergeist movie. I think the first Saw movie is, I'm not counting, I could go up to 30 or 40 here. The first Saw movie is incredibly brilliant in its deconstruction of like structure and setup. Oh my God, I'm blanking the name. The Denzel Washington Devil movie. John Goodman. The Devil Made Me Do It? No. Devil Inside? No. Blanking on it. That was a really smart little like.
I know exactly the film you're talking about, where the demon's jumping to and fro, and it's
at the end of it.
And then he like shoots himself, and it's like, that jackass thought I needed a human, and just bounces off anyways. It's like, dude, what a dick move. I guess you needed to like fucking bomb the area you were in, like fairly heavily.
Just drop a nuke in the table. Yeah. The Witch was brilliant. I like The Light. The Witch in the Lighthouse, the same director. I thought his Norseman movie was okay. I'm looking forward to his Nosferatu movie. I liked Midsummer and Hereditary. I'm trying to come up with more recent. Babadook.
Yeah, it's Babadook.
Yeah. There's been I think what's happening. Guillermo del Toro's movies are almost always touching on horror in some way.
Dude, did you see his Pinocchio?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I know.
What the fuck?
It's weird. It's like I'd seen Nightmare Alley, like the originals, a few times. My grandfather was a fan, and I think Nightmare Alley, despite how well it was shot, how well it was acted, was the first time I've really been disappointed by a Guillermo del Toro movie. Just because he didn't find a new way to push it the way he's done other properties. It was almost too literal a remaking of the film.
All I know is that Pinocchio film, I'm like, this is disturbing. I can't even. Like,
Pinocchio was brilliant and disturbing, and he can fuck shit up like that any day of the week, and I'll watch it.
I mean, look, I was in a rough moment in my life at that time, even though I do love Guillermo del Toro as a filmmaker. I just so about that time of my life, that particular time of my life in that film, and I was like, I can't fucking do this shit. What in the holy
And
hell?
there's absolutely, I can think of a few points in my life where if I had watched that movie, it would have destroyed me.
Yeah, I was just like, I didn't get that far into it, and then I like clipped forward into a little, and I clipped forward into a little more, and I was like, no, no, not right now, not cool, not cool, Guillermo. I'm a fucking
See, the
yeah.
weird thing is I bet if you went to a cinema to see it instead of streaming, you would have sat through all of it and then dealt with the trauma at the end of the movie.
At that particular moment in my life, I was willing to walk away from a hell of a lot, Richard. So I don't know. I don't know that I would necessarily agree. At that particular moment, no, I think I'd have gotten like 10, 15 minutes in and been like, I'm gonna go walk into a different fucking movie. And just literally went
That
and
would have,
eh.
I've walked out of, I walked out of two movies. One because my date walked out. It was The Cook, the Thief, His Wife or Lover. She couldn't handle the brutality of it. And I was like, fuck, I'm enjoying this movie. It's a horrible, horrible movie, but I'm enjoying it. But my girlfriend left, so I'm going to go. The other movie that I walked out of because it was so bad was, God, it was so bad. I got to remember what. I generally block out the really bad shit. You might have noticed from the questionnaire. I don't pay attention to bad shit. It was one of those big blockbuster movies, and it was so terrible. I think it was the one with Dennis Quaid and The Earth is Freezing. And it was so, or is it 2112? There's a scene where there's like a Buddha standing on like a mountain, or Tibetan monk, and then there's a tidal wave coming across the mountains. So it was one of those disaster movies. It was so incompetently put together. I just walked out. I got better things to do in my life.
Man, there were so many disaster movies at a certain point that they all started to kind of blend together. I mean, there are certain like I think Armageddon stands out as one of the stellar ones, but I think it's because it was early, it was a new concept. I don't know if I haven't watched it in a long time. It might not be as good as I remember. You know, I mean that's the way a lot of the things are. But yeah, I mean,
I mean,
yeah.
just think about the premise of Armageddon. It's easier to train deep sea rig miners to be astronauts than astronauts to mine. I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm thinking, there's got to be a rationale, and there wasn't a good one. They just, well, we want Bruce Willis to be a blue collar miner or oil rigger, and it's like I'm going like, that's just make him a fucking astronaut. Bring in a couple of specialists who try and teach them, and they're the blue collar guys. And then they got to deal with astronauts who like know how to calculate trig in their head while actually rotating in 3D pressure. And it's like, oh, you don't know how to turn this valve? It's like, astronauts are some of the smartest motherfuckers that we actually have around here.
Yeah,
So I put the movie like a big dump on them.
yeah, that is the broken concept of that film.
Yeah.
It really is. It's the broken concept. But I will say, the first horror film that you named, I love that you put it as a horror before anything else because there's so many. That's a sci-fi movie. Fuck you. Alien is a
No,
horror film
horror, horror
at its
is a.
core.
I think it's really easy to find horror in quality movies if they're dealing with dread. LA Confidential, as much as it's a police procedural crime movie, it's a horror movie. Think about what. Do you remember LA Confidential?
Man, it's been so long since I've seen that one, and I've never been one.
It's
I've never
my
been
favorite
one for
movie.
police film or TV shows, really, more than anything. I mean, like, I'm down with Beverly Hills Cop, but that's pretty much where I stop.
Okay, so LA Confidential set in LA in the 40s, early 50s. Police are completely corrupt. It opens up with the police beating the shit out of a bunch of Mexican arrestees because they think they killed some cops. They didn't. And everything follows from that. And at no point, the weird thing is the two main characters, Guy Pearce, blanking on his name, and Russell Crowe playing Bud White. They're both people who actually believe in being cops, right? Like they have an idea what a good cop is. And they're running and they're being ground up by the gears by how dirty and corrupt the police force is in LA and how the whole city needs LA to be dirty and corrupt at that level. And it's chewing them up. And you realize the existential horror of these two guys trying to do the right thing in a city that doesn't want the right thing done. And that, to my mind, it's like if you can have a story that reaches into those spaces, there's a bit of horror in it, even if it's like ostensibly just a police or a cop show, even if it's just a science fiction show, even if it's a fantasy. If they can reach into those dark places that lurk inside us that chew us up in ways that nothing else can, you got horror.
Even if it's America.
Well, America is a horror story.
I just couldn't help myself from adding that one, Richard. I probably shouldn't, but
in a country that was founded by people who stole land as immigrants, and they're now telling other people you can't be an immigrant here.
I mean, I think we as humans do that a lot, though.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like I love the whole. Like
we live in a global Western civilization where we talk about individual rights, but for all intents and purposes, we're owned by our governments. We're property.
Well, not even that, but if you think about, I guarantee almost every person that's ever like, you should pull yourself up by your bootstraps, has never really, 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 really had to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, you know?
Well, the origin of the term is a satire on the philosophy of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah,
think about it. Bootstraps are those little leather things on the side of your boots.
It's not really.
How do you go upright from that? You can't. So it was a joke, but now people are running around as if it actually means something.
I'll tell you the funniest thing, if you think about it, if you really reach down and grab your bootstraps and pull as hard as you can, you're more likely to break your own neck when you fucking flip over than anything else.
Yeah, or break your bootstraps because everything's made cheaply.
Well, I'd rather break my bootstraps than. That's their ploy, man. This is a whole ploy for them telling us to do that. So fucking people go do it and they break their goddamn necks and die.
There we go.
It's fucking population control. This is why they say pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Well, actually, if they want a real population, pull yourself up by your jockstrap.
So back to comics, man. We're gonna just take a real hard shift left or right. I don't really care which way, but we've probably pissed off half the people listening to this show at this point, and they've tuned out, right? So let's get this. Like I said, man, you've drawn a lot of different things, worked on a lot of different things in your time, or you've worked on a lot of different things in your time. Is out of everything you've done,
yeah,
and you look out at everything that's out there, you got any dream characters you just want to work with?
I keep bugging Mike Mignola to let me do something with Hellboy. Purely for the financial compensation, I'd probably do Batman. Other than that, I just want to work for myself. I mean, I'm working on Conan for Heroic and Titan. When my pal Jim's up, that was like series bucket list character for me. And I'm working on Savage fucking Sword, the relaunch of Savage fucking Sword. Can't top that. That's the 12-year-old me still hiding somewhere in the back of my brain is more ecstatic about that than anything else I do.
Did Mike do a cover for you guys over there recently?
Mike
Ruth?
No, I don't think he's been tapped for Heroic Titan for either Conan or he might have done a retailer variant. I don't know.
Okay, I just before I seen something.
He's done a lot of sketch covers with Conan. I think he's got a deep supply of sketch covers, man. I'm a little jealous.
I don't know who he robs to get the sketch covers that he does, but I am under the impression it is at gunpoint because he does seem to have quite a plethora of them. I'm like, yeah.
He sells so many of them. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually makes a special order with his local retailer.
Oh, I would assume, yeah, especially on certain books. I mean, he has to just because like I said, I've seen. I think he literally is to the point where he has so many sketch covers. He has some that are tucked away that he fucking forgets about and then finds later, and it's like, oh shit. Because I think that recently just happened with a Conan from a post he made, and like it was yeah. And I'm like, this dude's got so many blank sketch covers. He don't even know how many blank sketch covers he's got.
For a while, I was telling my local retailer, just put aside a bunch of blanks for me. And I was collecting them and I realized a lot of them were books I had no interest in. It's like, oh, I got this weird crossover event from DC with characters I don't give a shit about. Why would I want to draw a sketch cover? And then I realized on top of that, I hate drawing on sketch cover paper. I just hate it.
Why? That's something that has been spoken of on the show as far as drawing on sketch covers. Why do you think it is on those sketch covers they don't make it something that's a little easier to fucking draw on?
Because it has to be something that can be printed on, first and foremost. Printed on, and then stapled, and then shipped. But for me, the larger issue is if someone gives me their because we all know that the blank covers are like a subset of the covers you can get for the most part. So if someone hands me a blank sketch cover to do a drawing on, I'm guaranteed I'm not going to have another cover if I screw it up. If I screw it up, the whole book's screwed up. No one else can fix it. Nothing. Right? Someone says, oh, I want you to draw on your own paper or in my sketchbook something. If I screw up their sketchbook, I turn the page, I can draw something else. On my own paper, I screw it up, I just grab another sheet. Right? On that sketchbook, there's a weird sort of stupid pressure to, I don't want to fuck up anything, but the permanence of if I don't do this cover right, the entire comic book is ruined. Because so many of these guys go immediately do that grading thing, right? And I literally had someone who handed me a book to do a sketch cover, and he put it in some sort of folder where the book was pinned flat, and all I could access after lifting this plastic sheet was the area he wanted me to draw on. And I remember looking at this and I'm thinking it's going to be so awkward to move this big plastic laminate thing he had the book in. I was kind of like, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually at the point where I'll just say no to sketch covers if they get too particular about them.
You really have people. What's the oddest sketch request you've ever gotten, Richard? Huh?
Okay, so there's sketches. I know what game the commissioner is playing by asking for it. So I usually say no to those. There's been some things where they just ask. I've been asked to draw strawberry shortcake by a kid. And I was like, I have no idea. And that's when I used to do sketches for Free Comic Book Day. You get people who have no interest in comics, but they like free. And then it's a cheap sketch. Okay, well, I want you to draw this obnoxious thing that no one has interest in, not even me, but I just want to see it drawn. So I don't know. We can discount those. I think the most blatant one, because apparently there's a couple of people who do this. They want a female superhero covered in white glue. Think about it. So I've had 2 requests for that from 2 different people. And the amount of other artists who told me they've had the same request makes me think it's far more than 2 people who want that.
Are they asking for this superhero nude?
Well, if they're covered in white glue, you're not going to see anything. So you just get to see the shape, and they're covered in white glue. So I've seen people who've drawn it. I had the oh my God moment where I said no to the guy, and I looked over, and there's an artist who does really good work who's drawing it and doesn't know what he's drawing.
How did he not know what he was drawing?
Well, he thought he was drawing a character covered in white glue.
Okay. So back to something you said a moment ago and getting away from the white glue on the female superheroes for sketches, because, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, learn something new every time I do a fucking show. Jesus Christ, what's wrong with y'all asking for fucking female superhero sketches with white glue on them? Man, if you do that, you know the internet exists, right, y'all? I mean, I'm just saying, like, I don't know why you gotta go bug. I
I
mean,
knew
yeah.
the same shit before the internet, so I count myself lucky that way. I know some people who've drawn some weird shit, and when it showed up online, I was like, dude, you drew that? He went, yeah.
Okay. So, first thing I gotta get back to what you said earlier. You have people come up asking for sketches, and you know the game that they're playing. What game is that, Richard?
Well, it's like the white glue guy. He wants a drawing of a superhero and covered in cum, right? So he's going to ask for white glue, and we know what he's asking for, and he's hoping the artist will just draw it.
Okay.
I mean, there's also, okay, so I was also asked, this was an online request, so it wasn't a con. Someone asked to commission me to do a She-Hulk transformation. But what happened to her is her boobs kept growing, and he wants her falling over because she couldn't maintain the weight of her body with her boobs getting so big. That was an easy no.
I mean, all right. I think that's more reasonable than the covered in glue one, in my opinion. At least there's some humor to that. Like, look, that's kind of funny, you know. It's not.
I did laugh. I just did not want to draw that.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm clearly not afraid of drawing risque subject matter by any stretch, but I don't want to be a tool to someone else's
fantasy.
If I don't share it, I'm not going to play along. So.
Well, but you realize you have been a tool to someone. I mean, not necessarily sexual, but I mean, based on what you do.
Well, yeah, I mean the whole
maybe sexual. Hell, I've seen some of the witch drawings you put out, so maybe definitely sexual in all honesty too. But there is that. But then what have you seen from like somebody you know that you've seen, and you were like, "What the fuck?" and you had to talk to him about it?
Oh God, I don't know if I'm allowed to share that story.
Oh, now I really want to know, Richard. Come on.
No, because he passed on, and I don't want to.
Oh,
My good friend in comics drew something. I saw it much later, so it was in a sketchbook, and it was a really racy sketchbook. And I hollered, he goes, "Oh God, you saw that?" And I was, yeah, I said, "Oh." And this is like late 90s, so early internet. He goes, "I hope the guy never posts it." So it was pretty risque. And the guy was known for drawing very visually kid-friendly books. So him drawing that would have been kind of like when Dan DeCarlo draws, Betty and Veronica making out in the shower.
okay. You played the trump card to where I won't push the issue in saying that the gentleman had passed. And that's just not fair, Rich, because now I really, I want to know. But I won't do that to someone who in no way, shape, or form could ever stand up to defend themselves unless we got a Ouija board out.
Those were my living buddies.
Yeah. So yeah.
So he drew so and so doing this, and they'd be able to talk about it and probably spin it into some like more views on their websites. But no, I'm not.
Yeah, yeah, that's just you set it up so well, and it's like to where, and now it's just y'all can't have that knowledge. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
I-
it's the fancy dessert menu. We're not going to give you anything with the chocolate.
yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is, man. It was just set up so well, and then just none of it, and just whatever, man. Right?
Well, it
See.
is No Nut November, so I mean,
Mhm.
it's No Nut November, so everyone's supposed to be dissatisfied this month anyway.
All right, to that then. Right, out of all the projects you've done, what
Yeah.
one dissatisfied you the most?
I have to go really far back to New Warriors. I had made a decision to do superheroes. I originally broke in and wanted to be a Vertigo guy. I wanted to just do horror comics. But the weird thing is, at the time, Marvel kept giving me work, and DC kept saying, it's like, well, you know, you draw so pretty. We don't want to put you on a horror book. And I didn't think I drew pretty. And the Marvel guys, this is a beautiful thing. This happened to me on my third day in New York City. I had meetings at DC, at Vertigo and DC Comics. And then that afternoon I had a meeting at Marvel. So the DC superhero guys are going, oh my God, you should draw Vertigo. You should draw Vertigo. You're perfect for Vertigo. I go meet the Vertigo people, say, you should really draw superheroes. You're perfect for superheroes. Right? So I walk out of DC with nothing. I go over to Marvel. I know a couple of the editors because I had already done some work there, but my editor wanted to introduce me to people because Marvel editors at that point were amazing. They wanted to help everyone. And I actually remember sitting down in the guy's art. He's looking at my portfolio. He goes, oh my God, I'd love to see you do Sandman or Hellblazer. I'm going, yeah, I'd really like to do that too, but they think I'm a superhero guy. He goes, no, you're not a superhero guy, but you're good. So we're going to give you work. So in terms of the Marvel DC fight, in the 90s, I like Marvel a little bit better. But anyway, so I made a decision. I'm gonna try and make it as a superhero guy. So I went after and I got the New Warriors gig. And I figured if you're gonna work at Marvel in the 90s, the best person to work with is Fabian Nicieza. No one understood how Marvel superhero comics work better than Fabian in my mind. From
Shout out
reading
to
a whole
Fabian.
bunch of them.
Real quick, shout out to Fabian. Check out his past episode where we get into all kinds of things with him. And yeah, he's a hell of a cat, man. And it's somebody that I've been a fan of for a while. As far as in, I
Yeah.
mean, he created. I'm the Wade Wilson of hip hop, and I mean,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for Fabian, I ain't the Wade Wilson of hip hop because there ain't no fucking Wade Wilson.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And so I got the New Warriors gig. And Fabian he was also of the mind I should have been drawing a horror book. So he wrote, to my experience at that point, the best single issue of a comic book I'd done. And it was with the Sonics guys. And there's this one telepath type guy who was completely going crazy. I got to draw that comic book. And then Fabian turned in his outline for the next year. And it was not good. And it didn't have any of the energy that his previous arcs had. It didn't have any hooks. It was just kind of like treading water, and it felt like treading water. And I didn't say it to Fabian, but I said it to my editor. I said, okay, Fabian's done much stronger work than this. Is there something is this how he usually pitches and then moves on? But,
One sec. Hey. All right. You were exciting my dog, Richard. What are you doing? You're pissing off America. You're
hey, man,
making
I kind of do excites bitches, man. That's what I do.
especially with
I should be counting the hand covering the eyes there because I think that's a reward thing we're going for. But anyway, so I tell my editor, and he goes, I read it, and I couldn't put my finger up. I think he did. It feels like he's treading water. And so he goes back to Fabian, and Fabian goes, you know what? It's not that I'm treading water. I think I'm out of ideas for New Warriors. This is past 50 issues of New Warriors at this point. And Night Trash and all the other stuff he was writing. So he quits the book. And my editor, who is a great guy, he gets transferred out to Marvel Animation almost immediately after. So Tom Brevoort comes in as the new editor, and he doesn't want to make waves. And there was another assistant editor who desperately wanted to write New Warriors. He'd been pimping for the job for years, apparently. So they get him to write a 2-issue arc, and it's garbage. It's hot garbage. I mean, he does the one thing I think is a cardinal sin with superhero comics. He took a real world political situation and it's superheroes in it, and there's nothing superheroes can actually do about the situation. There's nothing that the superheroes, because they're all white kids from America, can say about what's happening in Africa. And it was a terrible, terrible, terrible story. And then he has the audacity. I've been drawing the book for 4 issues now, and he comes in. He says he tells me how I'm going to the book. He says, "Don't do any of that over the top superhero shit. This is a real story." And I'm back in my head. I'm going, "This is a piece of garbage story, and you don't want me to do the one thing the readers want." So I'm drawing the first issue of this, and I'm like going, "This is thank God it's 2 issues. I don't even want to draw the second issue of this." And then Tom Brevoort tells me, he says, "We decided that he's going to get the book." That I quit. Right then and there. I thought I was going to be New Warriors for a year or two, because that seemed to be the track record for artists for the series. I wanted to be a New Warriors for a year or two. And this writer that came on was so execrably bad, didn't understand what an audience wanted. And I think he wrote New Warriors into the dirt. I think they gave him like 2 years with the book. And this when the whole market was collapsing, and they were desperate to hang on to anything that sold at all, but the sales were just going down. That was I think my biggest career disappointment is I didn't get to do my year to 2 years with Fabian UCS on New Warriors. Because I'm absolutely convinced if Fabian been able to go into that well where he gave me that 1 issue, we would have shifted the direction of the book a bit. But we would have had, I think, a solid run for a 90s Marvel comic book. I think we would have done some really good work.
Well, and I mean, what you're currently working on, man, you've got something that's a massive property that holds a great legacy in Conan that you're currently working on. I mean, it's one of the things that is definitely up there in the grand scheme of things. And then you've got Second Coming coming out. Right. Give me a brief synopsis of that, man. Like, how did this, and how did it go from? So this is an original story you pitched to DC, right?
Okay, so I was actually brought on after DC greenlit Mark's pitch. Dan DiDio was a big fan of Mark's books before he started writing comics. So Mark was sitting in Dan's office, and Dan goes, pitch me stuff. So one of Mark's ideas was based on a stage play he'd written previously. What if Superman and Jesus Christ are roommates? And Dan DiDio loved it. He said, "There's no way in hell I'd be able to keep my job if we publish it as a DC book, but we'll make it a Vertigo book. And it can't be Superman. It has to be someone else."
We're back. Sorry about that.
All right. No problem.
Quick issue. Man, do you think that's a thing with the companies as far as they hold certain characters in such high regard? They're either too willing or too afraid to make certain changes with them. And I mean, I would specifically be referring to, Spider-Man, Superman, Batman. Even though they had the balls to show Batman's wang, that's a whole different story.
Yeah. I don't know that if I owned Batman as an IP and a significant amount of my money came from toys sold to preschoolers and underoos, I would make a hard line that you're not going to have his wang in a comic book. I don't care if it's for an adult readership. And this is what I think one of the problems with comics in general is Batman and Superman, despite having an aging readership, and you can craft, because the history proves it, you can craft seemingly adult stories with these absurdist creations and have some sort of gravitas and weight with it. But you shouldn't do it with something if you're still planning to make money off of toys. At no point there was that really derivative Spider-Man, was it Spider-Man series by anyway, Spider-Man killed Mary Jane with his radioactive cum. Carrie Andrews drew it.
That actually happened?
Yes. This is Marvel. Basically, Carrie Andrews convinced them that they could do like a Dark Knight riff with Spider-Man because there were like similar prestige at the companies. So he did a very Dark Knight, and he drew it very Frank Miller-y. And Peter Parker was like a sad, old, lonely man. And part of the reason he was sad and old is because he killed Mary Jane. He gave her cancer because what made him radioactive in Spider-Man was radioactive enough still to kill her. It gave her cancer. You don't do that if you're selling Spider-Man underoos.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that with like the boys because they ain't selling the boys underoos to little kids.
The boys started as an Watchmen. You can do it with Watchmen because Watchmen started as an adult book. V for Vendetta started as an adult book. Sin City started as an adult book. The Boys started as an adult book. In the first few pages of Second Coming, I draw the trees of knowledge of good and evil with fruit that are shaped like dicks and vaginas. It's an adult book. If we went into Superman and said, you know what, we're going to have Superman hanging with Jesus Christ, and we're going to have a flashback to the Garden of Good and Evil, and we're going to have Vag and Dick showing up. Yeah, you can't do that in a Superman story. And I find it somewhat offensive that the only move that these corporate IP holders can do is, instead of just doing good comics, period, hire the best people to write and draw and color your books, pay them well enough, and say we only need one Batman story a month, right? Maybe two if we have a really good idea for a side thing. But we have an industry where it's like everyone's desperate to not get fired. We're in an industry where everyone's desperate not to get canceled, socially or economically. We're in an industry where these companies, these primary superhero IP companies, have bottlenecked what they're allowed to do so much. I mean, it's like, well, we're going to do this with Batman because, you know, anything with Batman in it sells. But we could tell an even better story if we got rid of Batman and it was just a crime story. It'd be a better story. The option isn't to do the better story. The option is always to make more money.
I mean, yeah. What impact do you think like Image had when coming into that? I mean, they obviously, them and Dark Horse really helped change the market, and I think helped turn it into what it is today, as well as a few other companies. I'd say 2000 AD was within those. Valiant was part of that as far as making it to where the market turned into where people realized, oh well, I can make comics, and it doesn't have to be Marvel or DC. There are other avenues, which ended up to where it's crowdfunding. I mean, you got people making comics all their own that have no publisher at all.
Oh, that's true. When I was talking about the Bottle City of Candor, we were supposed to end up talking about crowdfunding.
And we missed it.
Yeah, we just ended up going, you know, America bashing.
I thought I rambled a lot, man, but Jesus, Richard, you're pretty bad.
I think the move was, I mean, at the birth of the direct market, there was Pacific and Eclipse and First and all these other companies who showed the viability of not doing Kimiko, of not doing Marvel or DC comics. There's Fantagraphics doing Love and Rockets, probably arguably the greatest American comic book is Love and Rockets. The level of quality in writing from start to current times is still better than anything else in the market. I think the lesson was important for the people who were wanting to be comics creators in the early 80s, because that allowed them to do what they did in the 90s. Without First Comics and Howard Chaykin doing American Flag, without Matt Wagner doing Grendel and Mage, without Roy Thomas and Craig Russell doing Elric, without Mike Barron and Steve Rude doing Nexus, I do not think we would have had Image the way we did in the 90s. And what Image did, not to comics, but to the industry, was prove that Marvel wasn't the only game in town. To the degree that Valiant really largely grew after Image founded. There was, God, I'm blanking the name on them. They did Bravura Comics. Malibu,
Okay,
who originally
yeah.
distributed Image stuff. They got to fund their whole superhero universe. Everyone thought superhero universes were the thing because of Image, but the reality was what it was is different. So everyone doing superhero universes kind of fucked themselves because Image was already doing that, right? And it created another one of those wonderful boom collapses that happens in comics in the direct market so often. And what Image became after that boom was far more valuable and far more important to comics than anything that's happened before.
It's funny though, but then they have, because you're right, and I mean we had Jim Valentino on and we discussed like if you wanted to create an Image universe in film,
Yeah,
it's gonna like you're probably gonna have execs blowing their heads off trying to make the deal because they
yeah.
have to make it with 15 to 20 different creators, and all those creators can do whatever the hell they want. Oh, so you got that one and that one. Oh, and you need this one now, huh? And I mean, you could just, you could really essentially just hold them over a lit candle and being like, look, man, you can let your ass set on fire. You can buy this for what I said because you're trying to do this and you already spent all this money on everything else. I'm one of the last three pieces you need. So
Well,
yeah.
I would honestly, I wouldn't. I think all the credit for Image's current viability lies with Image Central. And I think that where Image Central got its power is from when Jim Valentino and Eric Larson, with their own extensive indie background, kind of pushed Image to become an indie company as opposed to just another superhero universe. But also factoring the fact that, considering the lawsuit history at Image with Todd McFarlane and everybody, and Rob Liefeld and everybody, I wouldn't want to get into a legal agreement with those people. It would be a mess. It's like Spawn can stand on its own, and then you only have to deal with Todd and sign a contract with Todd. If I had to actually do Spawn and then deal with Rob Liefeld, I would kill myself.
Well, okay then, Rich. Well, my point though, I think it's interesting though. If you look at the image in its entirety, they do have a very interesting pseudo superhero universe within it. That being Top Cow, that I'd love to see Top Cow with its own movie universe if they could do it right and gave them the budget to where they weren't putting the Witchblade in the suit of armor. It actually looked like it was organic and gonna rip your face off at any moment, like it should. That's why I hated the show. I'm sorry. I know they tried with the
Yeah,
show.
that show was pretty terrible. The show was
Yeah, it
pretty
was.
terrible.
It was just, dude. It was the whole fact that it was plate mail, and I was like, I can't get over this. I need this to look like it's just gonna extend out of nowhere and rip someone's face
Yeah.
off. Because
I think the tech to animate that is a lot more accessible now than when they did the
oh
series.
yeah, that's why I'd love to see an arrow.
I really think that the Darkness, Witchblade, even Rip. I wouldn't necessarily do the whole Cyber team, Cyber Force.
No, I think you could do.
Ripclaw could work.
I think you could
Ripclaw
do
could
the
work.
artifacts ostensibly. Is you could build up
Yeah.
to the whole artifacts and make it to where you introduce all of those. You could perhaps introduce Cyber Force as a side, but yeah, the forearm cyborg with with three arms on one side. That's gonna throw. I don't. That's gonna be a hard sell. I feel like.
Well, the thing is, okay, at one point, just think of the hard sell of a talking raccoon in a tree. I mean, if things are done well, I really think like if we're going to run down the rabbit hole of Top Cow, which I think has the most solid media transferable properties. I think between Darkness, Witchblade, Ripclaw, they could start as standalone movies, which is what I think all of them should do. Start with a standalone movie, make it good, make it interesting, Plant the seeds for, let's say you start with Witchblade, because that's probably the one that's got the most cultural traction. And, you know, have Ripclaw hired to kill her. Okay. And then Ripclaw realized she was lied to. Standard movie trope. Do it smarter than that. But then now you have Ripclaw established in the Witchblade movie. If the Witchblade movie is good, you're going to get a sequel. And if it's not good, you're going to get a Ripclaw spinoff.
And look, man, I hope somebody out there in Hollywood hears this and is like, they're pitching a really good Witchblade movie. Because then what you do is you have it to where Ripclaw was hired by the mob that Jackie is actually an assassin for. You know what I mean? So you establish just Jackie, but you establish him before he's turned 21, so he doesn't quite have that power set yet. And they have a little tiff, and Jackie gets the shit kicked out of him.
I would probably have the Darkness spin out of the Ripclaw movie.
I mean, they did have a significant back and forth, but I mean that's above my pay grade. I think if you're gonna do those films, though, you definitely have to make sure that the Witchblade, Darkness, and Angelus are heavily intertwined. But technically, if you're doing those films, then the Witchblade, Darkness, Angelus fight should be your first end game.
Yeah, I mean, like you play with the. This reminds me of something I pitched at DC and they didn't pick up on. I wanted them to do something called the Legendary imprint. So you take your core characters, it's reduce the amount of monthlies you put up with these characters. And instead what you do is you have Legendary Batman, Legendary Superman, Legendary Wonder Woman. And you have certain key pieces that everyone kind of knows are a part of the setup of those characters. And then what you do is you hire a creative team and say, all the pieces are set. Every single Batman villain is on that side of the board. Every single Batman ally is on this side of the board. All the pieces are in place just the way they always are. Tell your story. At the end of it, everyone's dead. Well, that's okay, but we got a standalone Batman story. And we get the best people to take as long as they want. Can be 6 issues, can be 12 issues. They do their Batman. So the Legendary Batman imprint would have 1 or 2 new trades every single year. Top tier talent taking their time to do the best Batman story they ever have. And then you get the monthly Batman book to feed that audience. What you got to do is like with Darkness and Ripclaw and Witchblade and Angelus and all these characters, these are the pieces that we got played. If we're going to make a movie, we have to make a good movie with these pieces and make changes as needed. I'm not a big believer in adherence to either continuity within comics or continuity when transferring to another media. I think you have to be true to the spirit, but I don't think you have to have the details all the same.
That's funny because we recently did a PanCon about reboots. Myself, Dave, who works at the Comic Book U, Stephen Grant, and Scott Wojak. Yeah. And discussing reboots in comics. And one of the things that I specifically brought up was if you look at it, anytime anything's transferred from one medium to another, it's kind of a reboot because you're not getting the exact same thing. Like, if you've read Starship Troopers and you've watched Starship Troopers, that's a pretty hard fucking reboot right there from one thing to another. It just is. I appreciate them both now, even though I initially hated that movie because I love that book. But I was young then. I was young, and we're all.
I love the movie. I hated the book.
Well, see, I didn't grasp the depth of the satire the first time I watched it, and was just pissed that it was nothing like the book. Not that, they didn't even describe I've said this on past episodes, they didn't even describe the bugs in the book, so it was very open for interpretation. I don't know, there's just, when I initially seen it, my brain had way more problems with it, like so many that I don't even remember now. I was just like, that movie.
Oh, I like that. I mean, I remember when I first saw the fan news that Paul Verhoeven was going to direct it, and I'd been following Paul Verhoeven for a while, so I knew his Dutch films previous to that. And I went, they're going to take a guy who is old enough to remember the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands to make Starship Troopers. I said, this is either going to be the weirdest disaster ever, or it's going to be brilliant satire. And I'm happy we got the latter. I mean, it's like all these beautiful white people getting torn apart in this fascist system was just like, oh, that's perfect. And then the creepy psychic guy is like, you're afraid of us. Yes. Like, wow.
I mean, it definitely is a film that stands out. And I think if you're into satire, it certainly is. And I think that's another thing that's interesting. I think a lot of times people do things in comic that's satire that's not noted to be satire. Why do you think that is, man? Like, do you think it's harder to read satire in a comic than a different medium?
I think satire is hard, period. There's a lot of people who will walk out of a movie or just finish a book that's deeply rooted in satire, and they don't get it. Do you remember the Peter Sellers movie Being There?
Be what?
Being There. It's now culturally obscure. Peter Sellers played a severely limited in intellect gardener for a very wealthy man. And when the wealthy man, who was very politically connected, passed away, somehow everyone assumed that Chauncey the gardener, so everyone called him Chauncey Gardner because they never asked him his last name. They just thought he was that was his last name. They didn't realize he was a gardener. They started taking everything he said as having merit, as significant intellectual worth. And most of the time, he's just talking about, like, well, in the garden, you have to do this. So he's asked the question, he can only talk about what he knows because he's so limited. And everyone takes it as having great emotional depth. And it's a brilliant, brilliant movie. You get a chance to find it on some streaming site, watch it, Being There. And at the end of the movie, to establish that he is so ignorant and innocent of what the world is around him, he actually walks on water. Right? Brilliant satire, start to finish. Brilliant. Brutal. Tears down everything about the American political system like crazy. I'm talking to someone who had just seen it, and he didn't get why Peter Sellers was walking on water. Well, why was he walking on water? And I'm like, did you watch the movie? A lot of people aren't wired to take in satire because satire, we do parody very well. We understand and grasp parody very well because it's around us. Satire is rarer and rarer every day.
That's kind of sad. But hey, real
Yep.
quick, man, I just gotta, because we haven't touched into questionnaire much, and y'all can go check it out on the Patreon if I got it up by the time I got his episode up. Either that, or you'll be able to check it out shortly after you watch this episode. Look, trying to keep up on everything, leave me alone is tricky. But you said, what comic book world would you want to live in? You're instantly like none of them, because they
Right.
all have superhero like events.
Right.
But man, I
Yeah.
said any comic book
Millions.
world.
Yeah, you think about it. It's like if I was going to live in any superhero universe.
No, I said any
It would
comic
be,
book universe.
okay, if you look at the non-superhero comic book universes, generally horror, and everyone does.
Come on,
Like,
man.
would you
You
want to
don't
live
want
in the
to.
Walking Dead world? I wouldn't want to live in the Walking Dead world.
I mean, I was thinking more like, look, man, I'll go live in like I don't know the world of plastic, plush, and vinyl because Doug said those were all the same world. You know, because as long as you don't ran across one of those psycho fucks that are featured in the comic, you're all right. And what's different compared to the real world than that? As long as you don't run across some psycho, you know, that's typically the rule of the world as it is now. You know,
Well, in that case, I guess I would live in the Star Trek comic world.
a structured
Because they're
comic
Star Trek
world.
comics. Because then I can be on a planet that's far away from any dangerous quadrant and just get my Earl Grey tea hot whenever I want and go into a holodeck and get laid. I mean, that'd be pretty sweet. And we're living in a post-scarcity economy and environment. No one has to work. Everyone does whatever the fuck they want. I just draw all the fucking time and get laid. I don't care if it's a computer laying me. I mean, if
There
I'm
you
going to live in
go.
any sort of fictional construct, I think the Star Trek post-scarcity, I think the Next Generation era, even though there's like big space conflicts, I wouldn't live near Earth because the Borg show up there. I'd probably, some little like paradise, like Regia, like one of those paradise. I'd be like an entertainer artist on one of those planets.
See, that's what I'm saying. It's not just Marvel or DC. I
Yeah,
completely understand not wanting to live on one of those planets, though. I think what was it? Uh, oh Jesus! Now I gotta fucking look up.
but you think about Crisis on Infinite Earths. How many billions of people did that series kill?
Or I mean, the snap.
Yeah.
Like
Did the snap happen in Marvel? That was just the films.
no man in the in the movies. Yeah, he snapped. Yeah, no, he did that in the films. Or I mean, wait.
But they undid it within the story, right?
Well, yeah, it always gets undone, man. It's comic books. What fucking like everything. That's why we were just when we were discussing reboots in comics. They technically don't ever reboot shit. They bring in something, and then 2 years later, they make it just as it was before that. I mean,
Well,
that's
that makes the idea of living in a comic book universe even scarier. You wake up one morning and everything that you thought was your life has changed because a new writer came on board.
that's why really it's shittiest for Deadpool if you think about it.
Well, Deadpool knows he's a comic book character, doesn't he?
Yeah, yeah. Deadpool's really. I mean, technically, She-Hulk. I don't think She-Hulk knows to the level that Deadpool does. From the way I don't read a lot of
No.
She-Hulk though either, but
I think you have to be a certain level of crazy to understand that your reality is completely fictional and somehow you became popular in it.
well, when your head gets blown off that many times and regenerates, there's literally comics where he's like, "Look, I want to take a nap," and just shoots himself in the head just to go to
Yeah.
sleep because he's like, "I got to shut my brain up for a minute." So, I would certainly say that Wade is that certifiable without a doubt to be able to realize that he's a comic book character, man. But yeah, that's to realize that just a different writer would change everything. But I know Matt Samoa, he said he wanted to firstly, he's from DC. And he said Marvel. And I was like, wait, you want to live where you live now in Marvel? The fuck is wrong with you? Dude, look, I think I'd rather live in Gotham than I would the New York in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's terrible that Gotham's fucking safer. Jesus Christ. It shouldn't be. Yeah. Yeah, the third thing you put on was just your wishes. I want to talk about my wishes. And I've seen a lot of these drawings, Richard, with your witches. It's funny, it's Richard's witches. That's say that shit 5 times fast. Um it's very just you just draw them witches. All half naked witches.
Yeah.
You just
Well,
do that
I've
all
been
the
more than that, but yeah.
just all the time.
It started last Halloween.
And
I
you just
wanted
can't stop.
I wanted to join in with the monthly drawing challenge. It's a thing. And I had the idea. I'm old enough to be one of the guys who remembers this. There's an artist named Leroy Neiman. He might be more famous for these sports paintings he did. That looks like they're all done with a palette knife, really messy, splattery sports paintings. I think he did one that was shown at the end of Rocky 3. He used to do paintings for the Super Bowl every year, these massive sports paintings. But he was friends with Hugh Hefner, who was the Playboy publisher. And Hugh convinced him to draw these little cartoony women that would. You remember where Sergio Aragonés would draw like little bits in Mad Magazine all the way through? They'd just be putting their little decorative comic bits
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
book.
I mean, it's been a while since I've read Mad, but
They don't publish it anymore. But
you're making me think there.
so yeah, but so Hugh Hefner had Leroy Neiman draw these femlins, these little dark-haired naked women who wore opera gloves and silk stockings, and they just decorate the magazine. They just show up, right? They just be a nice little decorative drawing. And I love those drawings. That's probably the only work of Leroy Neiman's I really love. I have deep nostalgia and affection for. So I said, what if I did a Leroy Neiman witch? And instead of like the silk up, because I just want to do pen ink, I didn't want to do washes. I'll do fishnet for the sleeves and the leggings. And after drawing the sleeves, I'm like, oh fuck no, I'm not doing fishnet stockings soon. I'll break my wrist. And I drew one, really enjoyed it. And so I said, I think when I posted it, I'd probably go back and check. And I said, I don't know if I'll do another one this month, but I'm starting the month with at least this one. I might draw a couple more once a week or whatever. I don't know. But I drew in the next day, and then I drew in the next day. And I think by the fifth day, these were the most popular thing I posted on Instagram in like a year. And I was really fucking enjoying drawing these witches.
Do you think it's... Oh, go ahead, man.
Okay. And honestly, they were so stupidly popular by the end of October. I said, well, I have to keep going with this somehow. So I came up with the idea of Witchy Wednesdays, draw one witch, allow me to do my other work, draw one witch a week and post it every Wednesday. And those are also super popular. But then Instagram, because they're building up to releasing threads, decided to get really puritanical, but everything posted on Meta. So these really tame ink drawings of witches started getting censored. This goes against our community standards some way. We're not sure. We're not going to close your account, but we're not going to allow other people to see your work. They're either following you or they're not at this point. I'm just saying, well, fuck that. I mean, it's like I'm within community standards and you're still shadow banning me, but now you're letting me know. Well, that's nice of you. But the fight was so terrible that I said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go to 38, Witchy Wednesdays. So 38 plus the 31 from last October and 31 from the October just finished, that's 100. So I figured that's a nice round number. I'm going to do a book of 100 witches. So that's I've drawn so many more than 100 witches, but it's now going to be a book, and the book did well enough on Zoop that next October there's going to be a book of witch comic stories.
Oh.
Yeah. I said to myself, if we break $20,000 in support, that's enough support for me to grow on this. If we did well under 20,000, I'd stop it there, right? But we did well over 20,000, and I think that's a number to grow from. We can build an audience from that. So next year we're going to do essentially it's all going to be world building short stories. 6 to 8 page stories. I'm going to be posting on Patreon every month starting in January, I think. And then there's going to be a comic that I'm going to serialize next October that's going to be in the book. And it's going to be 31 days of comic panels. And so it might be 31 panels, it might be more than 31 panels, but I'm going to put portions of the story over the whole month. And that's going to be in the book too. So if that does well, I'm going to do a dedicated witch story that's going to be 60 to 80 pages the next October. So the witches are, I mean, I've already licensed one. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about which product yet, but I've already had a client come in and said that we want to do, I guess toys would be, not for kids, of course.
Yeah, hold on a second. Didn't we just say something about with and now you're talking about I'm gonna make toys, a bare-breasted, just everything out,
well,
witches.
I did say not toys for kids, so these are underoos.
Sure, you want them in Walmart, man.
Witches
Don't lie.
Witches are clearly for grown-ups of some sort. And so this company wants to do these little collectible things that will have the witches on them. So it's in terms of like a creative life, you have to lean into what you enjoy doing that has some success to it. And the witches are definitely not. I think my go-to is like dark fantasy and horror. So like Conan kind of straddles that whole dark fantasy horror thing. So I'm doing Conan. I'm very happy on Conan. Second Coming feels like what the hell am I doing playing in this band sometimes? I mean, I dragged Leonard Kirk on board because I knew he was much better for the modern world superhero stuff than I was. And in I don't regret being a part of it. I'm very proud of my work on Second Coming, especially the covers I've been doing the last couple of years. But I still feel that I'm really good at playing the blues, but here I am in a jazz band. That makes sense.
Oh no, yeah, no, that makes complete sense.
So with with Conan, I am playing early hard R&B, and I'm happy. With Witches, it's still going to be dark fantasy, the kind of, I guess, that Neil Gaiman kind of Dream County type of stories where every little story tells a little something about the world. Not that I'm going to ape Neil Gaiman, but I mean, those are the type of stories I'm going to do with the Witches. So I can serialize them smaller installments on my Patreon, so the readers get to enjoy the full story, and so they know what's coming. And I gotta say, I gotta say, Patreon really reveals the artistic empathy that fans can have. The people who support you on Patreon are generally going to be your best fans ever.
Well, I know for all y'all out there, there's a link in the description to both Richard's Patreon as well as the Questionnaire Patreon if you want to support the show as well. We got all the pre-show questionnaires up there, and hopefully I'm going to start getting some of the bits from the show that aren't actually part of the show from before I start the show and after I start the show up there, because there's been a lot of interesting ass conversations that have taken place that weren't part of the show and they really need put out, and I just need a fucking editor and whatever. So how do you do that and balancing that, man, between life, work, and then you've got to make sure you've got that out, and then to be able to scratch your creative itch?
I'm always weirded out when I meet another comic artist that doesn't like drawing for themselves. I've met too many of them. I'm drawing because I love drawing. And I love the fact that I can get up every day and most of the time enjoy what I'm drawing. Right? Sometimes you can't, but that's, I mean, if you're working if you clean city sewers, you're never going to have like that day where it's like, oh, look how bright and clean my workplace is. Right? I mean, I got, as far as hardship goes, I mean, there's economic hardship because our culture doesn't treat artists very well for the most part, unless you're astoundingly successful. But I'm doing what I wanted to do from a young age, and I have enough control over it now that I feel I have agency in everything I participate in. And I don't think a lot of people who have their day jobs can ever claim that. But what weirds me out is other artists who have a certain level of success, more than me, who do not draw for personal growth, who do not draw for personal enrichment. I mean, I will go into an art supply store and I'll see a new media, and I go, I've never worked with that. I'm going to play with that, and I might do completely garbage work with it because it's new to me. But I know full well every experience with that is going to make me a better artist. And I don't know if it's because I'm a stupid Canadian who has these airs about like what it is to be an artist and a creator, but I do not understand people who work in a creative field that are not curious about their own creativity. And I find that people that don't draw or honestly read for enjoyment, that means that part of them is dead. I've met a writer who says, I only read research now. I only read for research because I don't have time. And like, if you don't have time to improve yourself as a writer, because to become a better writer, you have to read. You have to learn how to read as a writer, not just as a reader, but as a writer, to see what the writer is doing while you're engaging with their story, where their little stage tricks are happening in their language, in the prose, like a magician, right? A good magician watches how other magicians do their show, not to steal their act, but to become better magicians themselves by saying, okay, I can add that. Oh no, I do that too much. I got to pull that back. Those are important things to do as a creative person. So looking at other people's art, looking at what you do in your own art, the self-assessment phase is so important. And as both a storyteller, as an artist, as any creative.
Agreed.
Yeah, I really think the move, and I'm bringing this back in here, the move to Kickstarter and Zoop and other creator-controlled platforms for storytelling and entertainment, I think that's the biggest benefit. With something like Zoop, I don't have to convince an editor to let me tell my story and then deal with the editorial changes that come with the fact, well, we're paying you a page check, so you're going to make the changes. There's an anecdotal story. Kent Williams, one of my favorite artists, brilliant, fine artist, started in comics, brilliant work. He was drawing a book at Vertigo. I'm not going to say the editor's name because that might be apocryphal. Someone may have given me the wrong name. But he was drawing a book, and he drew a crescent moon freehand. But so if you know Kent Williams' work, it has that fluidic scratchiness that Bill Sienkiewicz is also known for. So that crescent moon he drew was a very crude looking, but of a piece with the rest of his work on that page. And the editor said, "Oh, I need you to fix that moon. It doesn't look right." And he was like, "No." it looks like how I wanted it to draw. And the editor was like, no, you're going to have to change that. I'm the editor. And Ken said, well, I'm the artist. I quit.
All right. And so there's Richard. You've given me so much to edit. This has been a phenomenal conversation. But based on the entirety of this conversation, there's one more thing I want to get into. And I kind of dread to ask it because I'm going to be like, fuck, this is going to be a half-hour conversation. All right? But I'm going to ask it anyways. All right? So what's your thoughts of AI being used in the entertainment industry to the capacity that it already has? And what future effects do you think it will or will not have? Will it end up being something used positively? Or is it just there to rape every artist and entertainer that's alive and has been?
It's the best description of AI software is in terms of like writing and art is it's plagiarism software. It is incapable of creating something new. It's not built in such a way that it can ever create something new. It can combine things in a way that someone may not have seen before, but that doesn't make it new. And it's all 100% derivative of the work it's already been fed. And I've seen some of the weirdest, lamest defenses of AI. I've seen people who actually think it is artificial intelligence, but just operating at a low level, like a child. And I was like, AI is a marketing term. It's algorithms. It's the same stuff that Facebook uses to know that you were on Amazon looking at dehumidifiers, and now you're going to see nothing but dehumidifier ads on Facebook, right? That is the same stuff. So that is what artists and writers and actors are fighting. We're going to win. We're going to win. We're going to actually get control because the politicians, as usual, are completely fucking oblivious to what's going on because they're politicians. And they make money by being politicians. They don't make money by doing anything of value, right? Most of the politicians are basically, as soon as they get the job as politician, their job is to get reelected. And if you get reelected, it's easier to get reelected, so you stay a politician. So politicians aren't going to be given the answers. It's going to come through lawsuits and the fact that we can stop AI from making money by stealing our jobs and our work and our talent and our hard work and showing bullshit derivative stuff to the people who are largely disinterested in value of art anyway. If we can cut out their money, they can't afford their server farms to actually generate the AI. And if they can't afford the server farms, it ends. And I think we're going to win because so far, all the major copyright offices said, you know what, you can't copyright that shit. And if you can't copyright that shit, you can't make a dime off of it. So as long as we keep pushing in the courts that AI is intrinsically derivative, largely stolen work. Excuse me, I'm very upset about this. If we can keep beating that drum, AI is garbage. It's stolen work. It's driving people out of work outside of the arts in a way that no one's doing anything. Politicians should be all over this. With the start of automation, when they started putting all those robots in auto plants, right? They should have said, you know what, you put a robot in there, it replaces 6 people's jobs. We're going to tax the company the entire value of 6 people's jobs for 5 years, And we're actually, if you got laid off because of automation, you get your salary for 5 years paid by that company. Right? That should have been done in the 70s. Because just think about it. What are the jobs? When was the last time you walked into a retail chain that didn't have self-checkouts?
Yeah, and it's funny too that was the big thing at COVID. And it's like, okay, so we're all supposed to maintain social distancing. Hey, everyone use these keypads. Hold the fuck on.
We're all touching the same keypads.
Yeah, like
We're all
so.
scanning the same barcode thing. We're all standing in the same close area.
Yeah.
But on top of that, every one of those kiosks replaces at least one job, probably 3, because a lot of these stores are open late. So they need 2 or 3 employees to work those hours.
Well, and not even that, but in a lot of those situations, there would be an additional bagger as well, and there's not anymore where they've replaced it because you have people bagging their own things. And yeah, I mean, it's the self checkouts are very very odd to me, man. But what you said there is a lovely idea as far
Yeah.
as companies having to compensate for automation. It definitely won't happen nowadays. But as far as what you said in
Now,
reference
I
to
mean, corporations have been running roughshod. Right now, you're going to see, if it's unimpeded, you're going to see AI replace all middle management in every major corporation across the world. Most middle management jobs are observational and paperwork. And these algorithms are going to be trained to do the observational assessments and paperwork faster and cheaper than humans are. And there are no new jobs replacing those jobs. They're going to be gone. There's going to be maybe one human person for every 10 people, one human person with a new job for every 10 people fired. How do you run an economy like that?
I don't know, Rich, but Jesus, this interview's been slightly depressing.
Well, you got to have a sense of humor about it. We're not going to live that much longer.
Look, and this is the reason why I cannot read or watch the news. I get my news from like John Oliver anymore, and that's it because like Jon Stewart he don't do it no more, and Stephen Colbert is become very corporate and is not just doing whatever the fuck he wants anymore.
It's a very different thing than
Yeah,
Colbert.
so you
And
can't do.
Jon Stewart was canceled. Apple canceled his show.
Huh? Well,
Yeah,
they're
because
bastards.
you wanted to do 2 episodes. You want to do an episode on China, and you want to do an episode on AI. And Apple said, well, you can't talk about China and AI because we're deeply invested in that. And Jon Stewart says, well, if I can't do those shows, I can't do the show. So the
That's
Jon
why there
Stewart
were
show,
only
the
2
problem with Jon
episodes of
Stewart's
that. There was only 2 episodes.
those were coming up for this season. You wanted to do an episode on AI and do a deep dive in. Politicians do not want to be confronted with the stark truth of what their indifference is causing. There's always a couple of politicians who are actually, they see the shit. They see it coming. They go, oh, look at that shit. It's coming downhill. We're at the bottom of this hill. We got to move. And all the other politicians say, well, this guy's paying me money to stand right here and say something stupid. So I'm going to stay right here and say something stupid.
Jesus, Richard. I hope the people have taken from this what they should have, which is the fact that there needs to
Canadians
be.
can't be allowed on the internet.
Don't say that, man. You have any idea how many Canadians have been on this show?
I know.
Yeah, like I guarantee you. Dude, I guarantee a portion of the people that have been on this show.
I probably do.
Yeah, like I could probably name 4 names, and if you didn't know one of them, I'd frankly be amazed. We're not going to go into name dropping though. Just y'all go into the.
I mean,
Well, but that's because you asked what this
that's true.
was, and
Yeah.
if you're gonna bring up this particular piece of art, I will definitely give the man credit who I sat and watched create it while we bullshitted on the show. That episode's there as well if y'all want to go watch it, as well as Mike's been on a couple different times, man. He's always a pleasure to have on. But
well, if you want me to come on and just draw, I can do that.
oh really? Don't, man, you're gonna put yourself in a place where it's like I just think I agreed to draw, but that means you agree to draw whatever madness comes out of my brain, and
I can listen to the madness, but then I just interpret it how I want.
yeah, it's got it, but it's got to be some. But I mean, I'm just gonna say, but that's what I do in those particular pan cons. Is I want to give. Here's an initial concept. Take as an artist, you know what I mean, and because I don't dude. I don't draw for shit. My stick figures suck. All right. Like I can write, I can make a hell of a rhyme when I'm writing too. I'm honestly kind of in the process of writing something else that I ain't got a rhyme, which is really weird. I used to have to, you know, make my shit have this weird other structure where it's
Yeah.
like this, that, and this all have to rhyme in particular ways, and I ain't got to worry
Meter and
about
stuff like
this,
that. Yeah.
you know. Yeah, and so what?
Poetry is a lost art for the most part.
Huh?
Poetry is a lost art, and the only thing keeping it alive is rap.
I mean, that's true. I mean, there are those that keep it alive very poorly in that genre, and then there are those that keep it alive very well. You've got both spectrums, you know. I mean,
You're always going to have that. But I mean, if you look at like mainstream music, rock, pop, all the stuff, country, there's no poetry in it anymore.
but if you look at all of it, it all is influenced by hip hop anymore.
More so, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like nowadays, hip hop has touched every form of music to a certain
And
degree.
it should. It's probably, God, has there been a new music genre since hip hop? I mean, there's been subgenres, but hip hop on its own,
Ska,
yeah.
ska.
Scott predates hip hop, doesn't it?
Oh, I don't fucking know, man. I just remember it being a big thing at one point, and I knew hip hop.
Scott Wave proceed. Scott was white guys playing horns with dreadlocks and getting wasted on pot. I mean, that's from the 70s and 80s.
Oh, all right, fair enough, man. I don't know my ska history. I just remember at one point it was kind of brought about, and I thought it was a new thing, and I knew at that point when I heard
It got
that.
popular for a moment. It got popular for a moment.
Okay,
I honestly, it's like, um, there's a lot of rap I didn't like, but there's not a lot of hip hop I didn't like. If that
but
makes
yeah,
sense. Yeah.
I'll send you a link, Richard. You can tell me what you think of some Kill the Factor, right? I think, in all honesty, based on this interview, you at least might definitely agree with some of our opinions as far as certain things about the world. You'd be like, oh yeah, that's right. I mean, I ain't got that handy. We ain't gonna go into it. And look, we ain't on Kill the Factor today because I ain't got that shirt. It's about choose kindness, right? That's why I keep bringing Canadians on. Except Richard, man, they're typically really nice, but Richard got really opinionated, and I guarantee pissed someone off somewhere, dude. If you didn't, I'd be bloody well amazed. But, right, I want you all to keep in mind, if you didn't, man, if you enjoyed this interview, check out all those links in the description. Like I said, you can check out everything Richard's done and what he's got coming up, as well as his Patreon if you want to subscribe to it, right? And what else I want you to do, right, is I want you to send him a dragon, right? With some Wonder Bars, right? Right?
That's why they're questions. I
Right?
think
And
it's a Canadian only candy bar too.
hey, man, I mean, they can figure it out, right? And where the
I'm usually
hell?
sending Wonder Bars to my friends in the States. Coffee Crisp, Wonder Bars. What else do they ask for? I think Eat More
I
is
heard
something they ask for. They usually
coffee
only ask
crisp,
for it once.
yeah,
It was
coffee
kind
crisp
of
are apparently really good because I heard, yeah. Oh, and the original Black Tower board game, right?
yeah. They apparently did a Kickstarter. It was like $400 or something to get on board on, and I was like, I ain't paying that for that game. But it was like, did you ever play the Black Tower as a kid?
No, but $400 for a board game? What the fuck?
Well, there's some more expensive. So what it was is it was a board game, and it could have up to 4 players, and you had an army and a wedge of the circular board where you had to attack the Black Tower. But the Black Tower was one of those late 70s, early 80s electronic plastic things. So you'd hit this button on the top when it was your turn, and then the Black Tower would randomly show you what showed up. So it was almost like a board game version of D&D. It was like a weird little electronic widget in the middle. And I love playing that game.
All right. So yeah, if you've enjoyed that, like I said, yeah, hook Richard up with that. Now, if for some reason this interview has annoyed you, which I'll be real honest, I know there's been many a point where Richard had said things that probably could have annoyed a lot of people, right? But frankly, I mean, I probably did too, so whatever. But that's not about me. This is about sending something terrible to Rich, because that's what we're doing right now, right?
I'm
So,
the one. Am I the asshole? Yes, I'm the
hey,
asshole.
no, man, I ain't filling out no questionnaire so these motherfuckers can get to the Patreon and figure out what to send to me if they don't like my fucking opinions. All right? Fuck that. I will never fill out this questionnaire. Motherfucker point a gun at my head. Fill out the questionnaire. I'd be like, you really gonna shoot me over that shit? I don't think you shoot me over that shit. I think you should just fuck off.
I gotta say, I don't. I have yet to meet a creator whose work I valued that didn't have strong opinions. I didn't necessarily have to agree with them, but further in my experience, any creator who doesn't seem to have any sort of valid opinions, like deeply held opinions, isn't a creator worth following.
And that's funny. I'm gonna get to what we're gonna torture Richard with here in a second, but in the span of doing this show, man, I know it's about comics, but there are so many conversations about so many things that have absolutely nothing to do with comics, from world events to economics to, like I said, what's going on over in the Middle East right now. I mean, that's why it's the questionnaire more than anything else,
Yeah.
because it is a quest. Now, again, if you want to just drive Richard crazy right over here, right? I want you to send a doppelganger. Dude, that's just so mean, right? That's all kind of fluorescent colors, right? Because that's just so mean, right? And make it to where the doppelganger can teleport, right? It follows style, right? Because that's just so damn mean, right? And where's the man? See, I didn't get this written out. Oh yeah, and smells of shrimp pasta. Yeah.
Paste.
So, huh?
It's shrimp paste. In Thai
Shrimp
cooking,
paste.
they use
Oh,
a lot of fermented shrimp or prawn, and the smell of that stuff when it's cooking is hellish. My ex-wife used to
so a
make
shrimp paste smelling doppelganger that is for all kinds of fluorescent colors, and I feel bad for doing that a little bit, right? So, since I do feel a little bad for doing it, right? Make him watch 50 Shades of Grey while this thing's assaulting him, just for shits and giggles. You know? Why not? Besides that, I hope you have enjoyed the interview. Rich, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for coming on. Make sure you check all the links in the descriptions, because there are tons of concern with Rich and everything else and all kinds of things. Besides that, there's just 3 things I want all you mutants and metahumans out there to do. 1, give it that thumbs up. 2, get your comic on. 3, have a good night, y'all.
How's it going? This is Sean Damian Hill. Just reminding you should check out the Questionnaire, one of the premium podcasts that you need to listen to right now, every Wednesday at 7 p.m.
I said rock, paper, scissors, and he said Rick. Sean's winning. He is. Flat out.